Have you ever found yourself sitting in traffic on a Tuesday morning, the rain streaking down your windshield, thinking about the mountain of emails waiting for you, and just whispering to yourself, "I wish I didn't have to do this"? It's a near universal fantasy, isn't it? The dream of a life where the bills are paid, the fridge is always full, and your time is completely your own, free from the relentless grind of a 9 to 5. A life where someone or something simply takes care of you. We've all pictured it, a paradise of endless leisure. But what if I told you that this paradise is a prison? What if the very thing we long for is the most effective poison for the human soul? I recently discovered this truth in the most unexpected of places, a place of stunning natural beauty and profound human sorrow, and it completely shattered my understanding of what it means to live a good life. My journey took me to a remote corner of Arizona, to a place we'll call the Echo Canyon Reservation, home to the Silver River people. I was there as part of a government-affiliated task force, a group of consultants brought in to analyze the efficacy of decades-old social support programs. The Silver River people, a Native American tribe, have inhabited this land for centuries, long before the first European settlers ever set foot on the continent. Their history is woven into the very fabric of the American landscape, a story etched in the red rock canyons and the whispering desert winds. Scientific evidence suggests their ancestors have been on this continent for tens of thousands of years, a staggering timeline that makes the entire history of the United States feel like a fleeting moment. If you've ever traveled through the Southwest and admired the intricate turquoise jewelry or the beautifully patterned woven blankets in a gift shop, you've touched a piece of this ancient cultural heritage. These aren't just souvenirs, they are the living expressions of a people with a deep, enduring connection to their past. I had read about the history, of course, but books can only tell you so much. To truly understand the present, you have to stand in the place where the past still breathes. And in Echo Canyon, the past is a palpable presence. The modern history of the Silver River people, like that of so many indigenous tribes in America, is a story of immense pain and injustice. When the United States expanded westward, a clash of civilizations occurred that was devastating for the native inhabitants. Treaties were made and broken, lands were seized, and a series of brutal policies were enacted with the stated aim of civilizing the native population. Perhaps the most heartbreaking chapter of this history was the era of the Indian boarding schools. This policy, which spanned from the late 19th to the mid-20th century, saw tens of thousands of Native American children forcibly removed from their families and sent to distant, military-style institutions. The philosophy behind these schools was stark and cruel, famously summarized by one of its architects, Richard Henry Pratt, who said the goal was to kill the Indian in him and save the man. Children were forbidden from speaking their native languages, practicing their spiritual beliefs, or wearing their traditional clothing. Their hair was cut, their names were changed, and they were systematically disconnected from the very culture that gave them their identity. This created what historians call a lost generation, a generation caught between two worlds, belonging to neither. This historical trauma is not just a footnote in a history book. It is a deep, unhealed wound passed down through families, a shadow that lingers to this day. Have you ever considered how the events of 100 years ago could still be shaping someone's life today? It's a sobering thought, and one that is absolutely essential to understanding the situation in places like Echo Canyon. Share your thoughts on this in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear your perspective. In more recent decades, a wave of social consciousness swept across the nation, and with it came a sense of collective guilt. The American government and society at large began to recognize the profound injustices that had been committed. This led to a series of policies designed to atone for the sins of the past. These weren't just apologies, they were tangible, well-funded programs aimed at providing reparations and support for Native American communities. For the Silver River people, this meant a comprehensive welfare system. The government provided housing, health care, food stipends, and direct financial assistance. In essence, the state took on the role of provider, ensuring that the basic material needs of every man, woman, and child on the reservation were met. On the surface, it sounds like a perfect solution, a beautiful and just ending to a tragic story. A nation acknowledging its past mistakes and doing everything in its power to make things right. It is, in fact, the very dream we fantasized about in that traffic jam. A life where you don't have to work, where you don't have to worry about money, because you are completely provided for. But as I spent time in Echo Canyon, I realized the dream had curdled into a nightmare. There's a powerful English saying, "Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it." This community was the living embodiment of that warning. The first thing that struck me upon arriving wasn't poverty in the material sense. The houses were simple but adequate. People weren't starving. The children had clothes on their backs. What struck me was the atmosphere. It was a thick, heavy blanket of lethargy and despair that seemed to hang over the entire valley. The raw, majestic beauty of the surrounding mesas and the brilliant blue of the desert sky stood in stark, heartbreaking contrast to the emptiness in people's eyes. This is the first critical piece of the puzzle, the foundation of the entire problem. If you're finding this exploration insightful and it's giving you a new way to think, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more people who might benefit from this message. I began to see why. Imagine a young man, let's call him Kai. He wakes up in the morning and the sun is already climbing over the canyon rim. What does he do? There is no job for him to go to. In fact, there are very few jobs available on the reservation at all. But more importantly, he doesn't need a job. The monthly check from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, often simply called the BIA, will arrive. The food assistance will cover his groceries. His housing is secure. He didn't have to strive for any of it. He didn't have to study hard in school to get a good job, because what job would that be? He didn't have to develop a skill, a trade, or a craft because his survival wasn't dependent on it. So he wakes up and his day is a vast, empty canvas with no paint and no brush. Every day is the same. The hours stretch out before him, a monotonous, featureless plain. The initial thrill of freedom, of having no obligations, would have faded long ago, probably in his teenage years. Now it has become a crushing burden. The life we dream of, a life of perpetual vacation, becomes a terrifying reality when it's not a choice. A short break from work is restorative. A lifetime break from purpose is destructive. This vacuum of purpose, this daily confrontation with meaninglessness, creates a fertile ground for social decay. The official statistics for the reservation were shocking. Rates of alcoholism, drug abuse, domestic violence, and crime were exponentially higher than the national average. At first, it seems hard to comprehend. Why would people who have all their basic needs met turn to such self-destructive behaviors? But when I saw Kai's empty days, I began to understand. Human beings are not built for idleness. We are wired for purpose, for struggle, for achievement. We need a reason to get out of bed in the morning, a problem to solve, a goal to strive for. When that is taken away, we are left with a void. And the human psyche abhors a void. It will seek to fill it with anything it can find. For many on the reservation, that void was being filled with the fleeting escape of alcohol, the temporary numbness of drugs, or the short-lived adrenaline rush of violence and crime. It wasn't because they were bad people. It was because they were people who had been stripped of the one thing that makes life worth living, a sense of purpose. Have you ever felt that aimlessness, even for a short period, and noticed how it affected your mood and your habits? Share your experience in the comments. I think many of us can relate on some level. The project I was a part of was trying to find solutions, but the problem was far more complex than simply throwing more money at it. In fact, money was the root of the issue. The government, with the best of intentions, had created a system of dependence that had inadvertently amputated the community's sense of agency and self-worth. They had tried to heal a historical wound with a financial bandage, but in doing so, they had introduced a new kind of poison, the poison of passivity. The older generations could still remember a time when their culture provided that purpose. They had traditions, ceremonies, and skills for survival that gave structure and meaning to their lives. But for generations born into the welfare system, that connection was frayed, replaced by a listless dependency on a government check. They were caught in a cruel paradox. The very system designed to save them was now the cause of their slow spiritual death. This is a deeply uncomfortable truth, and if you believe that shining a light on difficult issues like this is important, please consider sharing this video. It's a conversation that needs to be had, not just about this one community, but about the nature of help and human dignity itself. This experience forced me to look at my own life through a new lens. It made me think about the work of psychologists like Abraham Maslow. He developed the famous hierarchy of needs, a pyramid that illustrates human motivations. At the bottom are our basic physiological needs like food, water, and shelter. The government programs had successfully provided for the bottom levels of the pyramid for the Silver River people. But Maslow argued that once these needs are met, humans are driven by higher needs, the need for belonging, for esteem, and, at the very top, the need for self-actualization, the desire to become the most that one can be. The system in Echo Canyon had effectively built a ceiling right above the basic needs, trapping an entire community in a state where they were safe and fed, but unable to climb higher. They were denied the opportunity to pursue self-actualization because the very struggles that forge it had been removed from their lives. Another profound thinker who came to mind was Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl observed that the inmates in the concentration camps who were most likely to survive were not necessarily the physically strongest, but those who held on to a sense of purpose, a reason to live, whether it was the hope of reuniting with a loved one or a project they felt they needed to complete. He famously wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." The people of the Silver River tribe had been given a comfortable how, but they had been robbed of their why. A life without a why is an unbearable existence, no matter how comfortable the how may be. It's a powerful lesson in human psychology. Have you ever noticed that your most difficult times, the moments you were struggling for something important, were often the times you felt most alive and purposeful? I'd be fascinated to read about your own experiences with this in the comments. So, I returned from Arizona with a completely new perspective on my own life. I thought about that person stuck in traffic, dreaming of a life of leisure. I now see that fantasy for what it is, a dangerous illusion. The daily grind, the stress of deadlines, the pressure to perform, the responsibility of paying the mortgage or providing for my family. I used to see these things as burdens, but now I see them as gifts. They are the very things that give my life structure, meaning, and direction. The struggle to learn a new skill for my job, the effort it takes to maintain my home, the challenges of raising children. These are not obstacles to my happiness. They are the raw materials of my happiness. They are the resistance against which I push, and in pushing, I become stronger, more capable, and more fulfilled. The problem in Echo Canyon wasn't the presence of hardship. It was the absence of meaningful hardship. That frustrating project at work? It's an opportunity to solve a complex problem and prove my competence. The never-ending list of household chores? It's the act of creating a safe and comfortable environment for the people I love. The financial pressure to save for the future? It's a long-term goal that requires discipline and foresight. These are not punishments. They are purposes. The story of the Silver River people is a profound and tragic cautionary tale. It teaches us that the human spirit does not thrive in a state of ease. It thrives in a state of striving. We are built to be engines, not ornaments. We need to be pulling a load, climbing a hill, building something. When we are denied that, we begin to rust from the inside out. If this idea has sparked a shift in your own perspective, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We delve into these kinds of transformative ideas every week, and I wouldn't want you to miss what's coming next. The solutions for the Echo Canyon Reservation are not simple. It's not about cutting off aid and letting people suffer. The historical context demands a compassionate response. The real challenge is to find a way to transform the nature of that aid, to shift from a model of passive dependency to one that fosters agency, empowerment, and self-determination. It involves investing in education that is culturally relevant, creating real economic opportunities on the reservation, and supporting programs that help the Silver River people reconnect with their traditions and language, the original sources of their why. My work there was just a small part of a much larger, ongoing effort to untangle this complex knot, to find a way to help that truly helps, by restoring purpose rather than just providing provisions. It's a monumental task, but a necessary one. In the end, this journey taught me that the opposite of happiness isn't sadness, it's boredom and meaninglessness. We spend so much of our lives trying to build a world free from problems, but perhaps we're chasing the wrong goal. Maybe a truly rich life isn't one devoid of challenges, but one full of challenges that we have chosen, challenges that matter to us. The next time you feel overwhelmed by your responsibilities, the next time you find yourself wishing for an escape, I invite you to pause and reframe the thought. Don't see your struggles as a curse. See them as a blessing in disguise. They are the evidence that you are engaged in the messy, difficult, but ultimately beautiful business of living a meaningful life. They are the very things that the people in Echo Canyon, living in their quiet desperation, are missing. Your struggles are your purpose. So, as we close, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. What is one challenge in your life right now that you have been viewing as a burden? And how can you begin to see it as a source of purpose instead? I would genuinely love to read your answers and insights in the comments section below. Your stories and perspectives are what make this community so special. Thank you for joining me on this deeply personal and reflective journey today. If this story resonated with you, please show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing for more content like this, and perhaps sharing it with someone who needs to hear this message. My name is John, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.